Welcome back to another episode of WAGME TV, and this is a special one today. We just heard that XRP beat the SEC lawsuit. So cheers to that, brother. What a day for crypto.
Seriously, I feel like we've been talking about this for years, so super exciting stuff. But we're going to kick it off with a little bit of summary, kind of give a brief understanding of the case. I think there's still a lot to unfold, as there always is. But of course, if you like any of the content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. We'd love to hear your thoughts and kind of what you think the impacts will be. But I guess just as a really quick summary, really, a federal judge ruled that XRP, which is the native cryptocurrency of Ripple, is not a security, right? The ruling is pretty major victory for Ripple. And honestly, as if you've been following us, you know it's a pretty major win for the entire crypto space and a lot of altcoins as well.
Yep.
So they've been sued by the SEC since, 2020 for allegedly selling XRP as an unregistered security. So again, judge found that SEC had failed to prove that XRP met the definition of a security, which we'll talk about the Howey test a little bit, and that Ripple had not engaged in any really wrongdoing for that. So ruling's pretty significant setback for the SEC, pretty significant, rocket boosters for the crypto market, and especially XRP. We've already seen that 2x today, which is really crazy to think it's not even on some of these major exchanges and it's making moves like that. So obviously SEC has been criticized for really aggressively enforcing securities laws in the cryptocurrency space. So, I think it's a really exciting piece of news for the day, and it's really bullish for the crypto environment. Anything to add to that, Ev?
Yeah, definitely super bullish. I mean, I think some of the big implications that came out of this trial was that XRP, by the Howey test, is not a security, and that's huge. Like that is something that could be extended to other cryptocurrencies, not only XRP. And I think another huge portion of this lawsuit was that the SEC was actually trying to create a new precedent called the essential ingredients. And really what they wanted to do was be able to put a blanket around other cryptocurrencies and say these were securities by these three different bullet points that they had set out. And really the judge said that you can't do that. There's no precedent for this to happen. And because of that, we're sticking with the Howey test. And really, I think that's a huge reason why XRP was found as not a security. Mata, do we have anything else around some of the more detailed findings or outcomes from this trial?
Nothing super in depth, right? Unless we want to really dive into kind of the rulings and the Howey test piece. I don't think that's super necessary. I think probably from here, it's good to just talk about like, what does the impact look like, right? We're already seeing altcoins rush like crazy. We've seen Bitcoin break a pretty significant resistance here today, which is super exciting, right? So I think those are all pieces that we want to talk about. I think the domino effect, right? The ripple effect, if you will. How is this going to play out into other token cases that have come to fruition over time? Obviously, XRP has been fighting this fight for a while, but there's been a lot of lawsuits happening as of late. And so, I think everyone started to take a little bit of a finer look at the XRP case and what was going to happen with that. What does this mean for the U.S., right? I know a lot of people were worried about a brain drain going away from the U.S. because of us not embracing technology like we did, say, during the dot-com era, right? So does this bring a lot more people back to the U.S. from that standpoint? How are institutions feeling about this? I mean, you think about VC firms who have been scared to invest in a lot of these cryptocurrencies in this crypto environment, some of these projects, because of the SEC and because of not having clarity around what this actually looks like. So what could be the impact from that standpoint as well? I think those are all great topics to kind of dive into. Some are more near term, some are more long term, but yeah, any takes on that, Ev?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting findings from this, not really a finding, but point of this case was that XRP did an ICO. And because of that, a lot of the cryptocurrencies that maybe are under investigation right now or have lawsuits against them aren't safe from this ruling because of their potential ICO. And I think when you're talking about maybe venture capitalists coming into this arena again, we could probably see that happen in a different way. I think in the beginning, we saw a lot of VCs buy through ICOs. And if like that is seen as a security for these tokens now, they're going to have to find a way into these ecosystems and networks in a different way, so that these tokens really don't have that security stamp on them. But I couldn't agree more. I mean, we saw alts fly today. This is a huge ruling for crypto markets, but also just like in the US as well. I think it's going to be really a catalyst for future court cases. When you look at some of the stuff that Coinbase is fighting against, I think you mentioned there might be some trials coming up, hearings around that. So we've got more of that events, more of those events coming down the pipeline. But yeah, what a huge day. I just can't say enough about this common
Yeah.
Gary Gensler L that hopefully continues to happen more and more.
Yeah. I mean, for someone who's supposed to protect investors, right?
Right.
With this ruling and XRP not being deemed security and people not being able to invest in them for so long, you think about the millions, potentially billions that investors have lost just because of this, right? So it's an interesting topic, right? When you start to think about like, okay, your role is to protect the investor, but what you've done is essentially prevented them from making any sort of cash flow or money on this, right? So it's really an interesting one. And we talk about Coinbase, we've talked about a couple others, but I think the big thing here is, right, you got probably a lot of lawyers scrambling right now trying to figure out what the new strategy is on either side, right? Strategy for the SEC, maybe Coinbase and some of these others are changing their strategy to go against the SEC by utilizing some of this and trying to use this as a precedent. Again, I think you mentioned this. It's not a binding precedent, but it is extremely well reasoned, and it's definitely going to be cited in the motions to dismiss and motions moving forward. So the real question is, I think you bring up a great point with the ICOs, like what cases are dead, what still stays alive, and how important are those ICOs here moving forward? I think it'll be, and from a timing perspective, again, like as excited as we are about this, right? We just had that news about the Bitcoin ETF and EDX markets and things like that.
EDX, yep.
So you obviously wonder what the impact's going to be on the Bitcoin ETF, on GBTC, on Bitcoin itself, right? Like Larry Fink and BlackRock, they're ready to go, right? The US is open for business is how they're looking at this. And it's just really interesting that they just released that, what was that, a week or two ago?
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden this decision comes out and cryptocurrency is really bullish in the US again. Super interesting from that standpoint. But hey, maybe that's a conversation for another time. Let's bask in the greatness that has happened today from the cryptocurrency side of things.
Yeah, and I think one other interesting little Easter egg that was kind of in this court ruling, the PDF that we can link below, is back in 2012, before they actually released the XRP ledger, launched it. They talked to Perkins Coie, which is like a world-renowned shop, to ask about securities laws and how this would fare, and they really said that the SEC would have very little or no leg to stand on, as long as you didn't market it as a security or as an investment into your network. And I think that's a big thing for future court cases, as well as what type of marketing, what type of rhetoric did the project have around it before they launched, or before they went into an ICO, or however they distributed their token. So I think that's another kind of tidbit that we'll have to watch in future court proceedings, of if that becomes a significant piece of why courts decide security versus commodity on some of these future rulings.
Yeah, totally. I think something to consider on this, right? XRP is safe. Likely, if XRP is safe, Ethereum's safe. We all know Bitcoin's safe. Everyone else isn't necessarily safe yet. Like the SEC is still going to fight this fight, and they might even fight harder now. They're just going to have to find more creative and different ways to do it, right? So before we get too excited, maybe we pump the brakes a little bit, because you bring up some great points there. But I think at the end of the day, it's a pretty landmark case that could change the future, especially for the US. And it's going to be something that's cited here moving forward. But you never know what's going to happen. And everyone just keep tuning in to WAGMI TV, and we'll keep you updated.
Absolutely. Yeah, tune in. If you guys like this content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe below. we've been covering this court case since, last year, early last year, talking about the Hinman documents, talking about the possible outcomes. So we've been all around this, and we'll be around the future ones as well. So yeah, feel free to tune in. We appreciate you guys' view and time, and we'll catch you next week. Wag me.
Wag me.